Landlord Simulator 2025. This is Popsville for the Jacksepticeye 2025 Game Jam, and in this game you must rent out your properties to old people to get some income, but don't rent them out to people who are too young, because then they'll bleed you dry for several years. When somebody dies, their house or apartment goes up for sale, and you can buy it and then rent it out to more old people to make an income. It's a very interesting balance of making sure you get enough money coming in, but also making sure you don't give out to too young people who will then bleed your money. It's a really interesting balance. That being said, the balance really is a bit skewed. Several times if you give out to someone who is too young, you will basically lose the game. You're really looking for people that were like 80 to 90 and normally have the attribute of frail or unhealthy or sickly. Really, if you choose anyone other than them, you will lose, which is a bit of a shame. I would like to have seen a bit more variety and maybe some more random variables, such as someone who's sickly suddenly becomes healthy. What do you do in that situation? Some randomness would have gone a long way here. This was for Game Jam, so it was a very basic sort of minimal game that was made in about 5 days. But I think the concept is really strong and could be expanded upon. For example, some mold choices could have been really interesting. So if you give out to someone who is 100 and they're quite sickly, when they pass, maybe the son could start a legal case against you, or they could attack the property. You need to pay for damages. Do you know what I mean? That sort of risk-reward versus what you actually need, which is money for your own survival and for your own benefit. Maybe on the right-hand side here, those houses could be quite expensive, or they could be mansions or so forth. You know what I mean? I think this idea should definitely be expanded upon and added a lot more of these variables and randomness to make you really have to think about the choices you're making. You might have no money, so you need to be a bit morally evil, let's say, but then there's consequences from that. In my first run, I did give quite a lot of properties to people who were young, and eventually they bled me dry. This is probably the one downside of the game, is that it is really, you want to choose the oldest people. If you choose the youngest people, you'll lose. Another downside is that you are... Lol, my voice went then. Another downside is there's a lot of waiting around, and maybe a speed up time feature could be nice. You are basically waiting for these bubbles on the screen to pop up. So you're just waiting around a lot. A speed up time could have been better. And also, it doesn't seem to be a win state. The win state seems to be, just get as much money as possible. You can maybe expand on this by having a timer. Let's say, you need to have £50,000 in profit to, pay a medical bill or something like that for your own person, or maybe some different reason, right? And then there's 5 days. So the game takes place over 5 days. By the end of that 5 days, you need to have £50,000 in profit. I think that gives a lot of agency to the player and will make the game a lot more interesting. But for Game Jam and sort of what they've done in 5 days, this is incredible, and I rated it highly. Popsville was developed by Arizona Identities on itch.